Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of 2024 favorites, checking out some of y'all's favorite songs that came out last year. Today, we're going to be looking at a band called Scarcity. This comes off of their album, The Promise of Rain. We're looking at the song In the Basin of Alkaline Grief. Let's dive in, see what's going on with Scarcity today. Ooh, these are choices. Okay. We have layered harshes here. That's kind of nice. Oh, there's synths in the backgrounds? I'm curious how they made this. I think it'd be easy to write that off as, they just pick some stuff in a workstation. But honestly, I think that was guitars. Certainly some post production put on them, but I think a lot of that is from amps and pedals and stuff. Okay. Okay. I like to be positive on this stuff. Critical, not cynical, right? I always try to walk away from anything I listen to with something. I'm at a loss here though. Okay, subjective. We're gonna start with the subjective. Okay. I did not like this. Y'all know that. If you've been a long time, if you watched my channel for a week, you'll know that this is not my cup of tea. It is noisy, dissonant, screechy sounds, and black metal drumming, and I don't know what kind of harshes those are. They're not the type of harshes I enjoy, though. It just I don't think there's a single part of this track that is for me, and I find that to be very exclusive. Okay, there have been very few tracks that I've listened to where I was like, I get nothing out of this on an artistic level, on a casual level, on even a compositional level, something that I, as a music writer, could learn from. Usually there is at least something that I can say, okay, I've grown because I've listened to this. Not with this track though. It's so outside of my wheelhouse while also being stuff that I just don't like across the board that I have nothing positive out of this experience. And that's just such a rarity to find something that just doesn't work for me. 100%. It's just absolutely bonkers. So that's where I'm coming at this, right? Uh, Even the bass is pedal tone all the way through. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing worthwhile talking about here. First of all, I can hear the bass. And this is black metal adjacent, so that's pretty big, right? I can get behind that. The vocals. Not my cup of tea, but I could make out words. In fact, I even pulled up the lyrics in the middle of the song. I guess we're about 4 minutes in, so I guess not necessarily the middle, but it wasn't the end because I wasn't getting anything out of the music. And unless I was still leaving, 20% of my mind focusing on the music, but I wasn't engaging with it like I was at the beginning of the song. I figured if something changed, I'd be able to convert resources over to the music again. But I was able to pick up where the vocalist was. I'm listening. I'm like, okay, oh, okay, this is where he is. I can hear these words. It's very cool. There's passion in the vocals that I don't always get with black metal, even death metal growls. Um, to me, it feels closer to almost a clean compressed clean, almost like he's shouting or yelling rather than screaming. There is a uniformity to it all, though. I think my closest parallel would probably be the vocals for Ashenspire, but Ashenspire sounds more varied. They have different tones and shapings of the mouth in order to get different sorts of inflections out, and there almost seems to be a pitched movement through Ashenspire's delivery too, where it is shouted and screamed, but it also feels not necessarily melodic, but with pitch changes, evoking the concept of melody. We don't really get that here. It's that impassioned shouting, but monotonous, kind of sticking with a single delivery style. So I do get passionate elements out of it, but it doesn't really speak to me the same way that Ashenspire's vocalist does. And I was talking about who was I talking to this about? It was during the recent Law of Asbestos reaction that I did a few weeks back, and someone had brought up, I think it was in the comments to the video, that the vocalist is just so impassioned that you just kind of get sucked into it. And I think that's honestly what drew me into Ashenspire. That is definitely a band that on first listen, I would have just dismissed probably as quickly as I'm dismissing this. It is entirely not my cup of tea, except the vocalist grabs me, immediately makes me look at the lyrics, and the lyrics are what pulled me into that world. And so that's sort of my mindset here too. I was like, okay, this vocalist really cares what they're singing about. The music, it's not changing, it's not doing anything. Let me see what's going on with the lyrics. Maybe this is going to be the key for me. Spoiler alert, we'll get into the lyrical discussion in a second, but no, the lyrics don't really pull me in. They're not bad by any means. It's just not something that immediately speaks to me like Ashenspire's vocals do, or I should say lyrics do. But just through this whole thing, I was able to hear the vocal words. I don't think I would have been able to pick them out without the lyrics in front of me, but the fact that I could find my place is something that I can very rarely do with harsh vocals. So I think that's a great point right there for the vocal delivery. Another thing that I want to bring up that's I'm positive about is the production on this. It's gritty, it's noisy, it's convoluted, it's crunchy and tense and cluttered, but it makes sense. It's high fidelity. Everything has its place. I can clearly hear the bass guitar. I can clearly hear both of the guitars, the drums. They're not really muddy at all. They're definitely large and powerful, but also very contained so that there's not a lot of overlap, especially on the faster playing. The vocals are tucked in a little bit, but enough to allow them to feel like a part of the band rather than separate from the band. And it's done in a way that has a very metallic characteristic to it. A lot of, well, even black metal in general just likes to tuck their vocals, and death metal does it too. Doom metal, I think, is really bad about it. Kind of covering up the vocals with the band itself. But it's in there enough to give it that metallic flavor without covering it up entirely. I can hear vocal sounds. Again, the syllables are kind of rough for me to hear. I think a lot of that's just the harsh in general, but I can make out where sounds begin and end. I can hear S's in there usually. So there is a lot of clarity to the production and a nice placement of everything without giving up that gritty gnarliness that it needs really to do what it's doing. So, yeah, the elephant in the room, right? Going a bit in the negative side. Although I'm going to turn this into a neutral. All right, just bear with me for a second. The guitars, right? Jeez. Two guitars usually moving in opposing ideas where they're usually switch between two notes, a higher one and a lower one, and they're usually alternating. Now, the two high notes that they're playing, the two low notes that they're playing are different. So it isn't like they're both hitting, a C and then like a I don't know, a low E or something like that. They're alternating high versus low, but each of their highs and each of their lows are also different. It creates something that, to my ear, reminds me of fire alarms as a kid, doing the fire alarm drills or earthquake drills or what tornado drills, I think is what we did. We don't have earthquakes in Florida. I don't think we were doing earthquake drills. But it's an emergency alarm is what the guitars sound like to me constantly all the time. 6 minutes straight of it. And at one point, cutting everything out and leaving just the guitars, which was a great time to really appreciate the production that went into it and the specific dyads created here. Not my favorite part, but I tried to appreciate it as best I could. The thing is with the notes that they're choosing is that they are creating very tense dyads here. And I think it's interesting that each of the instruments on their own is already rather abrasive. Hearing the two notes, the squealiness of the tones themselves, the overtones that are coming through when playing the notes, but also that the dyads that they're creating with each other is also tense in a very specific way. You can create a lot of different flavors of tension, and the one they went for consistently, no matter what, is this alarm sound. It isn't something you're just going to happen onto. Somehow in your gut, maybe you have education about it, but chord theory. These note choices that they have are not by accident. It's not something you just land on. They are purposefully chosen, and every single dyad created, whether it's the implied dyad of the high and the low, or the dual dyad of what the two guitars are playing with each other, is this alarm type of tension. It's very, very discomforting, right? Some tension can be fine. It can be palatable in ways. We usually associate this tension with, just a typical chord progression. Usually in a 4-bar chord progression, your third chord is going to be tense, so we can resolve it on that fourth chord and feel that return to resolution, to stability. No, this is a very specific flavor of tension, and it's discomfort all the time. And again, it's not something you just land on. It's not something you accidentally play. They know multiple ways of creating this and ordering them in a specific way to achieve this sound for the entire song. And they consistently shift it too. The two notes that they're playing at the beginning is different from, 30 seconds later, a minute later, when they go into the next section and they have different dyads. Same feeling, but different notes. They know what they're doing. And I want to put that there. There is skill in the creation process here. But this discomfort, it's purposeful. We're going to do some lyrics here. Usually I pause to read them, but, like I said, I already kind of went through them a bit. There's not a lot. The vocals take a long time to say a single sentence, usually. It's called In the Basis of Alkaline Grief. It starts off and says, weightless in the arid wind I plummet. Toward your terrain cruel and perfect it burns. It's scarred where the water went extinct, echoes of violence that left its bones flayed, and though I am afraid I rush toward your embrace, here in the basin of alkaline grief, I loom in the wounds of your soul, arrayed beneath the heaven's desiccant gaze. This area, this location being described is not one of comfort. It is one where every bit of it is burned, scarred, destroyed, torn asunder. And this person knowingly and willingly wades through it for this other person. It is about being in an area that is uncomfortable to be in. I think the song does a great job of showcasing that. What I think is interesting then is the final two lines of the track. I will make this waste our home, beloved, and you will never be alone. This is a song about finding somebody who is not in the best place. and being a rock for them, being their support and saying, you know what? Your baggage, your life, your problems, they don't scare me. I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. And if this is who we are, I'm not going to be here to fix you. I'll just live here with you. That's how much you mean to me. And it's a really beautiful message here. It does. I think I misspoke earlier when I said that it doesn't resonate with me. I think it's a fine set of lyrics. It's beautiful within its own right. It just doesn't click with me the way that Ash Inspire's totally political aggression does. And I think that collection of hate and anger and sorrow and grief in the lyrics fits the music really well. Here, I think the music paints a picture of this world beautifully. The way that it's described, the language used. I love the vocabulary here. But the song is ultimately one of positivity, lyrically at least, describing this wasteland and saying, we'll be here together then. I'll be your rock. I'll support you. And it ends up being this very wholesome song that the music just does not allude to at all. And so there's parts of it where I'm like, okay, this all fits together perfectly. They're doing a great job of depicting this, but there's also this element of the song that I wish was represented. This positivity, this wholesomeness, this hope for the future. And the song just decides not to showcase that at all, which I think it's fair, you know? Because while there is this support here now, the atmosphere, the environment still isn't going to change. And the music does a great job of showcasing that atmosphere, that environment sonically. But I would have liked a little bit of positivity to seep through some of this somewhere. Geez, I think that's mostly just my bias kicking in and saying I don't like any of this. Can we put something in here? I like a little dash of melody, please, of consonant melody. But yeah, it's a wonderful little poem though. I like that. Whew. So we got through that, and I wasn't, overly negative about it. I'm surprised myself sometimes. That was Scarcity. These are my thoughts on them. Their song In the Basin of Alkaline Grief. What did you think of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on, even if I misspoke somewhere? Put any of that, plus any thoughts you have, any interpretations of this track that you might have, down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.